Hello, and welcome to the OhioWIC Breastfeeding Tab training video for the new certification system version 6. My name is Christian, and I am going to lead you through a high-level overview of the brand new breastfeeding tab for the new cert system. Here we go. So just a little bit of a background on this new breastfeeding tab. We have a lot of goals for it and we're really excited. So we know it's brand new to you. If you have questions after viewing this video, please feel free to contact me and let me know. But ultimately, we are excited that this is the first foray into electronic charting. Like everyone's always saying, when are we going to go paperless? Well, this is the beginning of that related to breastfeeding documentation. So we're hoping that you are going to be able to drastically reduce or hopefully eliminate a lot of paper tallying in your clinics, paper charting. I'll kind of talk more about that as I go through this training. But also this is going to be consistent formatting across the state, and then when participants transfer from clinic to clinic, everyone will have the same information. All staff will have access to all of the information right at their fingertips, so there's less of a, well, this paper is in this place and this paper is in that place type of thing. We're really excited to be able to improve data collection, so we have some really great reports in the system already and some coming down the pike that we would really feel like would be beneficial for everybody. And largely too, we think this will be a great improvement to our quality and continuity of care for WIC participants in the clinic. So eventually everyone will utilize the breastfeeding tab for breastfeeding charting and your quarterly reporting. And we think it's going to be really helpful and beneficial for everybody. So for now, we do want the breastfeeding tab utilized for all women in the clinic. So this is all pregnant participants, regardless of breastfeeding expectation, and also all postpartum participants, like breastfeeding moms and not breastfeeding moms as relevant and appropriate. So we also want to be sure to clarify that while this is a breastfeeding tab and maybe largely will be used by breastfeeding staff, do want to be clear that all WIC staff can and should be involved in the breastfeeding tab to their comfort level, especially anyone who is counseling a mom. Would be important for them to be in the tab, be utilizing the tab, and be documenting what they discuss with that mom. So this breastfeeding tab has undergone a lot of iterations and has been developed over time with all of the suggestions from local WIC projects in mind. So some fields that you'll see maybe is not something that you tend to chart about or that you feel like it's important data collection for you. So unless the field is mandatory, or is relevant to a report, some fields you'll be able to, choose not to document in, and we'll talk about that more as we go along. But we did want to create a opportunity for everybody to be able to document what they would like to document. And then if it's extra information for you, there are some areas where you might not have to fill it all in. So when we dive in, you'll see more of what I'm talking about there. So, okay, without further ado, let's get started. Here we are in the new WIC certification system version 6. I have, prior to this video, gone ahead and certified a pregnant mom, Jane Eyre. And so she's active. I've given her some risk codes. I've issued her a card and some food packages, and completed all of her screens ready to go for us today. So I'm going to click on the breastfeeding tab here. So you'll see that the breastfeeding tab right now is totally blank slate. And again, that's because Jane is brand new. It's her first pregnancy. We haven't done any documentation yet. So when I click on the breastfeeding tab, the goal for this is just kind of to be a summary of what is maintained and charted on, like kind of inside the inner workings of the breastfeeding tab. So first here in this upper left area, you'll see a drop-down box for an infant or a child. Now, if Jane had multiple children, you would be able to see all of her children in this drop-down box. And whichever one you choose on Jane's tab, all of this information would be displayed specific to that child. So if she had her first child and she was still breastfeeding, maybe it would say partially breastfeeding. And if you flip to her second child, that child maybe isn't breastfeeding anymore. So all of this information down here would change. So it would say not breastfeeding and have good information for you related to how long she had breastfed and the reasons why she stopped and those types of things. So on the mom's tab, it's dynamic where you can see the different information based on which child that you're referring to. And I'll show you later, but once her child has a tab, the mother's name shows and all that information is static here because it's about that child and that mom. So what you'll see eventually, the most recent contact information from the breastfeeding tab is displayed here. Any pump information, if she has a pump that's relevant, is displayed here, and just general breastfeeding information here. And the dyad's next breastfeeding appointment from the WIC certification system, if there's one scheduled, will show in this area. And so I just want to take one moment and explain, I guess, what I mean by dyad. In the breastfeeding tab, everything is very dyad based because breastfeeding is a mutual relationship between two people. So the mom is always, the mom and the child or infant are always, dyad is always established between them. So that being said, when you click on breastfeeding details, this button here, this is what opens the breastfeeding tab. So because Jane does not have any dyads yet, I have to establish one for her. So this box will pop up anytime there is no dyad and gives you the opportunity to establish one. So if she already had an infant or a child in the WIC cert system, in this drop-down box you would see their name. For Jane, who is new and pregnant, you have an option for unborn baby. Now, I think this maybe is a little bit weird at first, but you'll all get used to it, I think, pretty quickly. But a pregnant mom has to be in a dyad or a relationship with an unborn baby before you get into the WIC breastfeeding tab in order to chart effectively. And what this does, it allows all the charting information that you include for the mom during her pregnancy. Once the baby is born, the unborn baby, I guess, like turns into that infant, and now all of the pregnancy information for that pregnancy for that infant is recorded under the infant's information as well. So since you always have to have a dyad, pregnant moms are always in a dyad with unborn baby. When the baby is born, then all of the information related to that pregnancy is attached to that baby and that mom in the dyad, okay? So I'm going to click Save. So I'm establishing the dyad between a pregnant mom and an unborn baby. So this message comes up letting me know what I just did. Are you sure you would like to apply these changes? I'm going to say yes. Okay. And then the breastfeeding details information comes up. So always at the top, you'll see the mother's information. So her contact information, her date of birth, that type of thing, her breastfeeding status. Right now, she is not breastfeeding. Her category, she's pregnant. And the breastfeeding tab is very contact driven. So I want to start right down here in this contacts tab, and you'll kind of see how this works once you get more information documented in here. So if you would like to add a new contact about this mom and start charting, you click on the Add Contact button here, and then the contact screen comes up. So again, always at the top, you have the mother's information so you can see who you're talking about. And then this next section, this contact information, is always going to be the same every time you click on Add Contact. The information down here at the bottom is going to vary based on how many children she has. So if she had multiple children, you'd see a drop-down box right here where I could choose which children I would want to chart about if something specifically is happening with those children. Since this mom is pregnant, it's just showing unborn baby in the pregnancy fields. Okay, so let's start in the contact information. Red asterisks here denote that the fields are mandatory, and over time the state mandatory fields might change and grow, but for now on this screen all that you need to complete this contact is the date. This is a calendar field. You can type right into it. But if you click the calendar, you'll notice that I can do today's date, which today happens to be January 7th, 2020. But I can do dates in the past, but I cannot do dates in the future. So this is basically like, you know, if I see a mom at 4:30 on a Friday and, you know, I'm not going to be back into the office until Monday, I could, you know, kind of backdate my information and chart on her then. I don't have to, you know, stay late on that day. Also, so we'll just do a percent example here. Let's just say, actually, I'm the peer, and this mom reached out to me on Facebook, you know, maybe last week, and I kind of got the process rolling, and now she's in OhioWIC today. So if this were, like, say, last week, I put that date in here. Okay, and then so this contact by field auto-populates with your username. Next, here we have a subject. So this is a select one option field, and it currently has different, like, kind of broad scale subjects that you might be talking with the mom about. So maybe it's education or encouragement, or maybe she's pregnant and you're doing a follow-up, or a breastfeeding follow-up, or a pump issuance. So kind of broad scale things. So I said we were imagining that she contacted us on Facebook. So let's just say, I don't know, it was her initial pregnancy contact then. So contact type, over here in this field, this is the select multiple, and lists ways that the types of contacts we can have with moms. So in this pretend example I'm talking about, it would be social media. So I can click that. But other options in here are like, you know, if I tried to give her a call and she didn't answer, she did answer, hospital visit, home visit, did she come for a breastfeeding class, did she have a breastfeeding appointment, was it a walk-in? So any way, any type of contact that you have with the mom can be noted here. In this topics discussed field, I can indicate all of the different things that I talked with her about. So this is a multi-select field. Also, I can click a letter, like start typing, and it'll show up with the options that are in here. So you can choose as many as you want to. You can see there's a lot of options. I think this will kind of, the more you use the breastfeeding tab, you'll get to know all the options in here. And this maybe looks a little overwhelming right now, but we wanted to include everything that you all talk about with moms as much as we could. So you'll notice things too, like there's something up here like diet or food allergy. So we do want to encourage everybody that you'll want to continue just to, you know, always talk about things that are within your scope, but we wanted to include a lot of different options because we know health professionals might be in here just like talking, noting that they discussed about diet with a breastfeeding mom, or, you know, there's like higher level breastfeeding issues noted, and there's like more general things. So whatever it is that you talked about, but just do be sure that we're, you know, saying in our scope, of course. So, so maybe this mom reached out to me on Facebook and kind of was like, hey, I'm pregnant. You know, I've heard about WIC. Do you have like, I just have a quick question for you. So maybe that's kind of what it was about. The next field is handouts provided. This might be most relevant if you're in the clinic and actually physically provided her those things. But I know that some people, you know, send PDF forms via email or links via text message. So, you know, maybe I sent her the link for something, you know, but I wanted to point out that at the bottom of some of these fields, like topics discussed and handouts provided, there is an other option. So handouts provided field has like all of OhioWIC's pamphlets, and then like some generalized type of stuff, like I'm the peer helper, so I gave her, you know, my information, right? But if there's like other pamphlets that aren't noted in here, or something that you've created in your local agency that you're providing, you can choose the other option. Same with topics discussed, but when you choose other, we would encourage that you type, you know, what you meant or what you actually discussed here in the notes section. So down here in the notes section, this is a free-form narrative notes and you have a lot of room and space. So I'm not suggesting that you need to type big long notes, but if it's necessary, you can. I don't want you to worry that you don't have enough space to type what you need to type, okay? So none is an option too, but you can also just leave these fields blank if you didn't provide any. That's kind of up to you. Other and none are at the bottom. So this refer to field is here, which maybe you'll leave blank, or you can say none as well if you're not referring at the time. But if you're going to refer the mom during this contact to somebody, this is what this field is for. So eventually we are going to have a report pulled related to this. So if I'm the peer and something's going on with this mom that's like, maybe I need to yield, it's a little bit outside of my scope, and I wanted to involve the breastfeeding coordinator at IBCLC, I can indicate that here. And then it's not ready yet, but eventually we'll have a report. So the breastfeeding coordinator could then pull this and say okay, who's referred to me this week and who do I need to follow up with? And we can kind of keep track of how often we're referring in general as a team. Similarly, if I'm the health professional and maybe my peer's not in today and I wanted to make sure that she talks to this mom, maybe I can refer to the peer. So it's multi-select, so if I need to refer to multiple people, you can do that in here. But that's basically what that field is for. If she has some type of pregnancy or breastfeeding issue going on, you can say if the issue is resolved, yes or no, or if it's ongoing. If there isn't an issue or anything, you're welcome to leave this field blank. This next follow-up needed field is a calendar-based field, and this is breastfeeding specific. So this is not like the next time she needs to come into WIC for a follow-up or an appointment. This might be something like, so she reached out to me on social media and I told her well, let me give you a call when I get back into work on Monday or something. Or I saw her in the office and I know I want to follow up with her in a week or two via phone call or text message. So that's something, I'm just going to put a random date in there so you can see what happens. That's what this field is for. And there is currently a report, which I will show you later, that is the breastfeeding follow-up report. So any date that you have in here shows up on this report. You can run that for a date range. So you can see okay, here I am today at work. Who do I need to give a call to today? Or what does my call sheet look like for this whole week? You can run it for whatever time frame that you need to run it for. But this field is what kind of comes up on that report. This next scheduled appointment is auto-populating from the WIC certification system. So this mom was in at 9:45 this morning for her certification. So it's showing, and she attended it, so it's giving you that information there. So it's showing her most recent appointment. So once today is over, it will show her next scheduled appointment in the WIC system. So that's there just so you can compare if needed without exiting out of breastfeeding and going to the WIC system to see if you want to coordinate appointments. I do want to see her in person and I know she's coming into WIC next month, so maybe I can coordinate the next follow-up with that date. So that's just there for your information. This breastfeeding education box here is for those who do breastfeeding classes or who establish their education in the WIC cert system in that way, and you select that this is breastfeeding related. So if you don't have breastfeeding classes or this is not something you utilize, this box will always look this way. But if you do have breastfeeding classes or schedule educations and call it a class, it'll have the name, the date, the time, and if she attended. So that'll always be there and you can know if she attended or didn't your breastfeeding class. And then, like I said, this narrative notes section, you can type anything that's related to the contact or other information that you wanted to know or topics or handouts that you talked about that you weren't able to indicate in here. So that is the gist of the contact information section. It took me a few minutes to explain that. I really just want to clarify with you that the more you get in and utilize this, the quicker it'll be. So I just want to show you. So if I save this, if I'm done, then you can see on this main page that you saw when we first opened it up, it kind of starts keeping track of all of your contacts in a timeline. So you'll be able to see the date, who did the contact, kind of what the subject was. If I indicated in that if the issue resolved drop down, if there's an issue resolved yes, no, or ongoing, and if a follow-up is needed. I can click this select button, no matter who, what staff person, and see all of the specifics of the contact I just made. If you are the person who created that contact, you are able to edit your work. So if I'm in the middle of charting on somebody and then someone came into my office or my phone rang, I can save it and then come back later and still, finish what I was working on. But you cannot edit anybody else's contact, just to make that clarification. So let's just add another one here real quick, and you can kind of see what happens as we add more. So now we'll say it is today's date. So that was like a pretend, hey, she caught a hold of me in the WIC system or on social media, but now she's in the office for her certification, right? So that happened earlier today. So the changes that you can see happened here is that since I made a follow-up, now it's giving me this box where there are outstanding follow-ups. So this lets me know that there's a follow-up that needs to happen for this mom. So if, today's the 7th, her follow-up was needed on the 13th, but hey, if it's happening early, that's fine. I can mark it as completed. And once I do that, well, I'll show you what happens once I do that. But let's just pretend now that she's in here for her certification appointment like she was today. We made sure to talk about what barriers she had with breastfeeding, the benefits she had with breastfeeding. I wanted her to have the How to Breastfeed booklet. Everything's okay. I type my notes here. I click save. Okay, so that was much quicker. You don't always have to fill out every single bit of information, but like I said earlier, or I think I said, and if I didn't, I'll say it now, that the information that you put in is the information that we're going to be able to get out via reports and the data collection is only as good as the information that's put in. So while not all of the fields are mandatory in the sense that you have to fill them in with the red asterisks, we still really want to encourage you to just enter as much information as you can, or any information as you have. It helps everything to be complete. As more reports are billed, you'll have more data coming out of them, and you just have more thorough and completed information for yourself and your coworkers to come back on and look at later. Okay, so again, we are eventually going to be pulling, in terms of reports, we're going to be pulling the quarterly, right now it's submitted quarterly peer helper contact report out of here. So we do want you going in like, okay, I tried to call her on the 6th and I left a message, I couldn't get a hold of her, save, right? So we want you, that took me 2 seconds, and I can like close out of here and move on to my next mom, give her a call and indicate what happened there. So ultimately the report's not ready yet, but we want you to get used to doing that because instead of hand tallying your phone logs and every piece of activity that you did and then submitting it to someone and typing it into like a different form and submitting it quarterly, what we're going to do is we want you, to put those things into this system, and then with the click of a button, you'll run that report and it'll have every phone call you made and what happened and the outcome and all those contacts that you made, okay? So for now, for some of these things, you'll probably want to continue to hand tally. But in the future, the goal is that you'll just like with a couple of clicks and a few seconds kind of indicate the activity, and then that report comes from here. So hope that makes sense. So back in here again, I'm just trying to do a couple in here just to show you, like once you're used to it, how quick it will go, and the different, I guess, ways that you can use this for, and then how that timeline works. You can see that it's like the oldest first, and they kind of build on each other. So the more information you put in, and you can select those and edit them and view them also as needed. That's pretty much everything about the contact information section. I do want to be sure now to talk about these pregnancy fields. So like I said before, these pregnancy fields are always going to be hanging out down here while there's an unborn baby. You'll see under the current pregnancy here on the left that the due date and breastfeeding expectation are auto-populated from the WIC certification system. The hand expression info provided here is just a checkbox. So per policy, every pregnant mom has to receive information about hand expression. So if you've done that during this contact, you can just click that. If you are interested in collecting information about the mom's OBGYN, their name, their contact information, you can do so here. This is a free-form type field, and this is a phone number. And if she has attended any classes during her pregnancy, whether it be a class in the community, maybe the Leche League or something, hospital breastfeeding class, WIC breastfeeding class, or if she has not attended or will not be attending, you can indicate that here. On the right side is her pregnancy history. So the pregnancies and live births, this is auto-populating, again, from the WIC certification system. So when I did her certification, I indicated that she had had one pregnancy and it was not a live birth. So maybe she experienced a loss, unfortunately, in this case. But if that wasn't the case, you can indicate if she has had previous breastfeeding experience. If you say that she has, it gives you this other field here so that you can indicate breastfeeding duration of her previous experience. So this is a select only field, but you do only one field, but you do have a lot of options in terms of number of days, weeks, months. Also, if the breastfeeding relationship is still ongoing, so you can choose that. So we'll just pretend, you know, she breastfed last time for a week. And if she had breastfeeding issues for her last pregnancy or child or just in her history, you can indicate those here. This is a select multiple field. So maybe last time she felt like she wasn't having enough milk and she, you know, started a birth control that decreased her milk supply, and so she nursed for a week. And so now we have that information from her past, so it kind of helps us, you know what happened before and address barriers and things going forward. So those are actually all of the pregnancy fields in here. So when I save that information, you'll see that it kind of lives there until like forever during her pregnancy. So if she didn't attend a class before, but hey, now she let you know she's gone to her hospital breastfeeding class, you know, you can update that here. So you can always edit these fields, but they just kind of hang out there while she's pregnant. So what I would like to talk to you about now, kind of moving along, that's like we talked about the contact information section, we've talked about the pregnancy fields. So now what I would like to do is pretend that she has called the clinic and has let us know that she has delivered her baby. She's had her baby. So maybe the subject then is her initial delivery contact, and she has called us, okay? And so maybe we talked about a few things here, and we didn't give her a handout at this time. Okay, and maybe I would have some notes here about our conversation. But what I would like to show you is this Pregnancy Complete button, the functionality that goes into this. So what this is, it's brand new functionality, and pressing this button and spending a few minutes filling out the fields that I'm going to show you in a minute accomplishes the tasks of 3 different processes now in the WIC certification system. So the first thing that this is going to do would be like if you were in the WIC certification system and you went to show all participants and you terminated this mom as pregnant because you're going to recertify her as, you know, postpartum breastfeeding or not breastfeeding. So it, you know, changes her from active status to pending and kind of starts that recertification process. It's like when you went to show all participants and did that. The second thing this is going to do is start a tab for her new baby. So you will be able to input some basic information about the baby in here. And the third thing that it's going to do is establish the dyad's breastfeeding status. Okay, so this one little button is going to do a whole lot of things here. And so I want to clarify that I know this can be a little bit scary for some, and maybe for some of you could involve a change in your processes, and that's okay. It's not mandatory to use this button right now, but I do want you to not be afraid of it and to kind of get used to it. The concern, I think, comes from some that using this button can and will lock the card, and she's not, you know, in person, and so I know it's a change, but we're going to go through it all together and I'll show you what happens, and I want you to you know, consider if this is something that would be helpful or be useful for you in your clinics and potentially utilize it. Okay, so after I press Pregnancy Complete, this new delivery section pops up, and the first thing that it's asking me for is the pregnancy outcome. So I can choose from all the options that are also available in the WIC certification system. If I choose anything other than live birth, it does ask me for an outcome date next, which is also what it does in the WIC certification system. But I wanted to point out to you that there are some breastfeeding fields here immediately available for this situation. So if the mom is on any medications that you'd like to document, you can do so here. It's a free-form text field. Any support people that she has helping her with breastfeeding or just in general, you can indicate those here. It's a multi-select field. Okay, and then if she is pumping, if her milk has come in and she is pumping and, choosing to save or donate her milk, you can indicate that information here. So if she's pumping, number of sessions per day, minutes per session, ounces expressed, or if you just discuss with her hand expression information because maybe she does feel like she has milk come in and it's engorged and you need to help her, relieve some of the pressure. Any of those things, also these things could be specified in the notes, of course, but my point is that some fields related to breastfeeding are available if the outcome is not live birth and the mom has experienced a loss. So if the outcome is live birth, the next thing that you would want to do is select participant. So if there's already a tab for the new baby in the WIC certification system, the baby's name and information will be right here and you can select them. But also you have the opportunity to add the baby to the WIC certification system from the screen. So if I clicked add new participant, I now get a whole bunch of additional delivery related fields. So these red asterisks again are the mandatory ones. So next I have to make sure to enter the baby's information. I'm not sure if anybody else is a fan of classic literature and knows Jane Eyre, but anyway, so she's having little Fairfax Rochester Jr., right? So the date of birth, you can do dates in the past or today, but not in the future, which makes sense again. And you indicate the dyad's breastfeeding status. So exclusive, partial, minimal, or not breastfeeding are your options. In the new WIC certification system, substantial breastfeeding is no longer an option. So I'll say that they are exclusive. And so those are the mandatory fields. And the information that's collected about the infant then is going to start the new tab for the infant. So additional fields here, these delivery fields in the breastfeeding tab are only available if you use the pregnancy complete button. Several of them are auto-populated from the WIC certification system. So if you did have the information in WIC Cert first, these would populate here. But if you do not use pregnancy complete, these fields can be edited in a different screen, which I will show you later. And then the delivery populates in that, or the additional information populates in that screen as well. So I'll show you that in the future. So contact post-delivery, we are, in your quarterly activity report, you have to right now you hand tally and you keep track of how long it took our staff to contact moms, once they've had their baby, how many days. And so this is something that we're going to start calculating for you in the WIC certification system. We're going to give it to you in a pretty report so that you can use that just for your own knowledge and information, but also for the quarterly activity report that you turn in every quarter. So this goes based on the mom's due date and then the date of this contact when I'm pressing pregnancy complete. So anyway, it's calculating that for you, which is nice. You can also collect information here related to the delivery hospital. If I want to, or if you have the information, again, you can edit these fields in another place if you do not have this information at the time that you're doing this. Delivery method, vaginal or C-section, you can indicate that here. Delivery at gestational age is another calculation that the WIC system is doing for you and would auto-populate if the information was already in there. So it's taking the due date, estimated due date, and then the actual date of delivery and doing the math there for you. So it would tell you the baby's gestational age at delivery is 35 weeks or 39 weeks or 41 weeks or whatever the case is once the calculation has time to take place. This birth information here on the upper right of the delivery section. Again, auto-populates from the WIC search system. So once the baby's sex is put in there, male or female, and once the baby's birth length and weight are put in there, this would show here and in the delivery screens. Discharge information, I know, is something that breastfeeding staff love to collect. So if you have that information, you can put it in here. And if you like to collect the infant's pediatricians information, this is a free-form type text field, and you can put in a phone number here if you want to. Okay, so those are delivery fields. Moving along here, you can see the breastfeeding fields. So these fields are present for every breastfeeding dyad. So the current length and weight fields, if the child or infant has an appointment in WIC Cert and it's already been entered on the same day, like before you do the breastfeeding contact, the weight and length for that current visit will auto-populate here. But generally, these are, you can fill them in yourselves, because we know that breastfeeding staff might, they might just like ask the mom, what was the baby's weight? Or maybe you come into the clinic and do like a weigh, feed, weigh. So we wanted breastfeeding staff to be able to kind of indicate these things more frequently than every, 3 or 6 months at the WIC office, if needed. So in this case, maybe I'll just enter something in here so you can see. The support persons and medications fields normally would not have anything auto-populated in here, but because I put some stuff in there when I was showing you the fields before, they're in there, but it's the same thing as before. Support person and then medication, you can type whatever you want. These fields all populate from a different screen, which I will show you shortly. And then the breastfeeding intake information is over here on the right. So these fields, again, are always here. So, always there when the dyad is breastfeeding. So this one's asking how many times per day is the mother breastfeeding. You can do hyphens in here if you want to. So 10 or 12 times a day. Is the baby getting any ounces of express breast milk? You can either leave this blank if she's not, or you can type a 0, or maybe you can use a decimal, like maybe she is getting like giving a half ounce of express breast milk per day. So you can use decimals and hyphens here, but these are generally number fields. And then, leave blank, or if she's not doing any formula. Diapers, so if you want to kind of keep track of like how many wet and dirty diapers the baby's having, if you're trying to kind of monitor intake and output. And then again, the pumping fields I already discussed with you. If she's pumping, how many minutes is she pumping, how many ounces is she getting each time, and then if I gave her hand expression information at this visit, I can indicate that here, yes or no, because again, per policy, all like breastfeeding moms have to be offered hand expression information. So if you did that at this time or discussed it, you can just put that here real easy. So those are the breastfeeding fields. I wanted to bring your attention real quick to this add delivery breastfeeding section for multiples. So if you're using the pregnancy complete buttons, and then the mom delivered twins or triplets, you can use this button, and then it kind of starts the process over with a new baby. So again, you would say the birth outcome. You can add another new participant if you want to. You get all those same fields for delivery and breastfeeding, but what it's doing is auto-populating what I just put in for the first baby, but you can edit it. So maybe if twin 1 was exclusive, but maybe this twin's partial, and so maybe this twin is getting 3 ounces of formula a day, you know what I mean? So you can kind of edit this as needed for the other twin, but it does autofill so that you don't have to like repeat everything for those things that are the same. Okay, so that's how you would do that. If she's had triplets, you click the button again, you can keep adding babies. So, but I don't want to do that, I was just showing you the functionality. So actually I'm going to click this red X and tell it that yes, I don't want the new baby. Okay, so we're back here at Fairfax Rochester. Okay. So when I click save, it's going to give me this beautiful message here about everything that's happening. So again, if you have some concerns or confusion related to the pregnancy complete button, this confirm changes box is just going to tell you everything that's going on. So it's like saying, okay, for Jane Eyre, we're changing her status to exclusive. We are terming her for her pregnancy, and we're going to restart her as postpartum. We're starting that process. We're changing her status to pending because she's ready to be recertified. Any future scheduled appointments for Jane Eyre are going to be removed. and any future month benefits previously issued will be voided and need to be removed because her status has now changed. Her certification period is now over. So that makes sense, right? And then it's also telling us, okay, for the baby, we are adding him as a new participant, and we made his breastfeeding status exclusive. One thing I think is important to note, and I'll go ahead and do it here, is that in the new system and with this breastfeeding tab, the mom and the baby's breastfeeding statuses are always synced once you've established that dyad. So the mom cannot be partial while the baby is exclusive, and vice versa. If you change one of them in any location in the WIC system, it's going to automatically change the other one, and that could have repercussions too in terms of like the food package or the card. If the mom did have twins, she, for example, or she has an older infant, she always will have the status, the highest breastfeeding status. So if one baby is exclusive and another baby that she's breastfeeding is partial, then mom's status will be still exclusive until something changes. And this is only for infants. So once the infant becomes a category like C for child, then it doesn't like automatically sync anymore. You'd have to manually make sure to change those things. Also, the date of birth and actual delivery date, once those information are entered into WIC Cert, those will sync too. So if you make changes to the baby's date of birth, it will automatically make the change to the mother's actual delivery date. So I just wanted to point that out. So moving on along here, it's now giving us in this confirm changes box this red card lock warning. Okay, so benefits previously issued to WIC nutrition card will need to be changed. If the benefits on the card are not updated before February 1st, the card will lock and be unusable. Again, today is January 7th. So it's letting you know in bright red font. So if you have concerns, just read through the changes and it tells you exactly what's going on, and it tells you the exact date that the card will lock. So what this means is like we said, the example was she's calling me on the phone. So we started this whole process, and so presumably we're going to schedule her a time to come into WIC and finish the recertification process. But she has this whole month until February 1st. She can use her card. You know, everything's fine and nothing's going to lock, nothing's going to be a problem. And then she comes in sometime before then, we'll reload her benefits and, you know, finish the appointment and everything will be fine. So, but if she does not come in until after February 1st and does try to use her card, it will be hot carded because it will lock February 1st. The other caveat to this that you should know is that there is, just for this, a 3-day grace period. So if you're at the end of the month, so again, today's January 7th, but if today were January 30th and I did pregnancy complete, it will not lock the card actually until March 1st. So if you're in the last 3 days of the month, it doesn't lock the card until the first day of the following month. So you don't have to, you know, be in to the WIC clinic in those, you know, in that single day or 2 days or 3 days at the end of the month. Okay, so then it says, are you sure you want to apply these changes now? If you're like, oh, I'm not sure, you know, like I'm not sure, then you say no, and it all goes away, and no, the card doesn't lock, it's all fine, okay? But we're gonna say, yeah, I'm sure this is what we wanna do. And then so it says, these changes have been applied. It gives you the exact same thing that I just read to you, and I say, okay. So now what it's going to do is pop this breastfeeding date screen. So this breastfeeding date screen will automatically pop up for you when you get into the breastfeeding tab in certain instances. This is one of them because we're needing to make sure to document carefully information about like when the dyad starts breastfeeding and when they stop breastfeeding. So we are currently working with an epidemiologist to get initiation and duration reports out of this, which we're very excited about. So in order for that to happen, we do need you know, this data to be recorded and it needs to be accurate. So the breastfeeding status, I just told it was exclusive, so it's automatically filled that in for me. The date started breastfeeding. In this case, I only have one option because this is the day the baby was born, but not always is the date it started breastfeeding the same day as the baby's date of birth. So if it's not, you can make that distinction here. And the goal is like the mom's goal. She tells you like how long she'd be interested in breastfeeding, or she hopes to breastfeed. So you can put in whatever her goal is, and it can be anything. And then this field can be edited And I'll show you more about this in just a minute. But for now, I'm trying to finish my pregnancy complete button. So I'm just going to enter this information and say save. Okay, so it's been updated successfully. Close out of here. And then let me show you what has happened. The OhioWIC search system will refresh itself. And voila, so you can see now Jane is not pregnant and active. She is breastfeeding and pending. You can see her breastfeeding dates information is in here. Her recent contact, most recent contact that we did is in here. And her visit screen. So anywhere that her breastfeeding status shows, her breastfeeding status now is listed. And it matches the baby. So the baby has his tab now, and his breastfeeding status is exclusive. And also you can see that the benefits are already ready to be reloaded. So if she came in right now, she was already here. If she comes in later this month, I can just lickety-split, reload her benefits, get our card ready if I want to, and I guess I can show you here that her future month benefits have just been removed and taken out of here because you'll need to put those back in. Okay, so it's everything that we expected would happen. And then, so like before now, this has been updated with the baby's name and participant ID number. Okay. So we'll click breastfeeding details and go back here to the breastfeeding app. And let me show you some additional functionality and things here. So let's say mom needs a pump. So again, this will be some pretend place in the future. And now she's calling, or she came in and she's like, you know, I've got X, Y, and Z going on, and a pump could really be helpful. Okay, so if I want to issue a pump, I utilize this button here called Add Pump Info. So when I click that, new fields come up related to pump information. So mandatory field here, I have to enter the date that I issued the pump. Again, it can be today or in the past, not the future. I have an option to choose from a couple of different sources of pumps. So if I can help facilitate getting a Medicaid pump, or you know, if she brought in the pump that she got from her insurance and I was kind of like helping her with that, you know, you can kind of indicate that here where she got the pump from. If you check anything other than WIC, you still just have these information provided fields. So this is a multi-select field of different potential information. You can also select other if there's something missing here that you provided. So, okay, I told her information about Ohio laws and nursing in public, and I really thought maybe she should go to this breastfeeding support group. And I also wanted to let her know tips for returning to work or school. Okay, and then any notes about the situation or what you talked about. Again, this is another one of those free form typing notes that you can take here as long as you need to, if you want to. When you do say it's a WIC pump, these same fields exist, but you also get a few additional ones. So then you also have to select the reason that was issued. If it's other, again, I would encourage you to type whatever the other selections were in the notes. So you have a few selections here from why you might have given a pump. In this case, let's just say that the baby was premature. The type of pump here, this will be updated shortly to include all of the new pumps from the new pump contract, and also to take out the kits because we're no longer kind of keeping track of the kits in your inventory. You can also indicate if you issued a nipple shield or breast shield or other pump accessories. But for now, let's just say we gave her a Symphony. Inventory status, you can say distributed alone. So of course, if it's like a hand pump, you would distribute it. A Symphony would be loaned. And then this ID number field is for your personal, like, I guess, inventory purposes, like whatever the pump's ID or name is, I guess, if you will. So maybe it's like, this is Symphony 2, or however you catalog your pumps in your clinic. And then you can say here, exclusively resting at time of issuance, yes or no. So that's just a drop down. And so you can kind of see where I'm going here. The report does not exist yet, but it's in development for pump reports. So the goal would be to get the information that you utilize for your inventory that you submit every quarter, or maybe one day it would replace the inventory. But we're working on like a detailed pump report and a summary, so we can kind of see, like, you know, we gave Symphony 2 out 3 times to these moms, and this is how long they had it out, and this is the information, and also like a more summarized, like, these are the pumps we're giving out more often. So we're working through some of those things, but all this information is going to be captured, and we're going to get some hopefully really great reports out of here. The next section down here related to the pump information is follow-up. So you do have to indicate the first follow-up that you're going to complete. So it's January 7th. You know, I'll check in with her after a couple of days and see how everything's going, right? If you want to enter the second and the third time, like per WIC policy or, you know, your local policy, when you'd like to follow up, you can go ahead and do that now. So maybe I'll give her a call on Friday, maybe I'll give her a call then when she's had the pump for 2 weeks, then maybe I'll give her a call after she's had the pump for, you know, 6 weeks. You can just kind of figure that out, and whatever works for you. You have to put in the first one, not the second and third. And these dates can be changed. And then these dates also show up on that breastfeeding follow-up report that I mentioned to you before. So any date that you put here in the next follow-up needed, and any date that you put here in the pump follow-ups, when you run those reports for that date range, those are the dates that show up in there, so you know when people need followed up with. And then the next fields here are these are all calendar fields. So if the pump has like a due date, you can enter that here. If you started the pump survey, you can enter that here. When the pump comes back, you can enter the date it was returned and when the survey was completed. And then you can edit these fields in a different location. I'll show you in a minute. But if the pump goes missing, then you can indicate the date that you followed up, the date you sent a certified letter, the date that you referred it to state WIC, and then ultimately if we just can't get it back and the pump is not returned, then you can check and say it was removed from your inventory. And then as always, the breastfeeding fields are here. So at the time that you're issuing this pump, if you wanted to do okay, well now she's pumping, so she's pumping 3 times a day, 15 minutes each time, she's getting a couple ounces when she pumps. Yeah, I reminded her about hand expression, you know, and she's still breastfeeding that 10 to 12 times, etc. So you kind of get, you know, what's going on here. But you can see now that the baby's information is here. The information that you have in the breastfeeding date screen is in here. Okay, so we click save. And there we go. And so you're able to see in the timeline now that things grow. And then as you have more and more context, you're able to kind of flip back through and kind of see here too. And I should have pointed out that I didn't before, that when you have the follow-up and the next follow-up dates, and then you mark that as completed, that comes in here. So if there was a follow-up that was needed, I'll just put it in here so I can show you. Okay, so if a follow-up is needed, and this could be multiple, you can have multiple outstanding follow-ups, the date is here, and then when it's marked as completed, then it's marked as completed. So you kind of know that type of thing. And then obviously if there are issues ongoing, you'll be able to see that here if you're utilizing that field. So that is the gist of that. Also, I should show you the red flag functionality here. So up at the very top of each contact in the mother information, there is a red flag checkbox. And so if I check that checkbox, then you can see the date comes right up underneath there that I marked her as a red flag. So maybe we'll just pretend that she has an issue going on and I am referring her on. And of course I would take, you know, okay, so it's a breastfeeding follow-up, the type of contact what I talked, and I would have my notes here. Okay, so this would make more sense if I wanted to collect any breastfeeding information, it's here. So I just kind of want to show you though what this looks like. Okay, so when I mark a mom or a diet as having a red flag, one thing that it does is has this red flag on date here up here in the mother information. So if you have a lot of contacts and the red flag ends up no longer being on this page, you can see that she has a red flag in the date that it occurred. if you can still see the contact on here, you'll see that it has turned red. And so the red flag functionality, there's no like specific policy about why you'd use this yet. So far people are using it like if a pump has gone missing, or if there's like a big breastfeeding concern, mastitis or something that we're really trying to follow closely, or that's really important as related to breastfeeding, we would use the red flag. And then if I close out of the breastfeeding tab, you'll also see that the breastfeeding tab here is red flagged. So you know how like if you issue a high risk code, these tabs turn red. This is kind of the same thing. So we're saying, like, let's all be aware that there's some red flag issue going on for breastfeeding. So you all will choose in your local clinic what that means for you and how you will utilize it. But I just wanted to point out that's like how it works. Another piece of functionality I wanted to show you is this lost to follow-up. Again, this is just another checkbox. So when I check in, I get a pop-up that says, this is checked, do you want to continue? If I say yeah, it's like, okay, you saved this successfully. So when this is checked, what this is for is like those moms who, like, if you will, just kind of like fell off of the radar. We just can't, so maybe she has a 6-month exclusively breastfeeding baby, but then now we've tried to follow up and her phone is off and her mailbox is full and her mail is getting returned and we just like can't get a hold of her. What you would do then would mark her as lost to follow up. We can't follow up with her anymore. So what this will do is take her out of most of your breastfeeding reports, so she's not skewing your numbers. So again, we're going to eventually be pulling initiation and duration rates out of here. We don't want, if we can't get a hold of a mom, we don't want to like assume if she stopped breastfeeding or if she's still breastfeeding and enter fake information. So you say lost to follow-up, she comes off your reports. Also like your follow-up report in general, so you won't keep seeing her there as an unresolved follow-up because you can't get a hold of her, so it just pulls her right off. And then if she comes back, she like shows up one day like, oh hey, I got a new phone number, here it is. You can just unclick that and then update her information as needed, and she's back onto your reports and you have correct information. So that's what that's for. While I'm up here, let me just point out this breastfeeding dates button. This is where you can edit that information related to breastfeeding dates. So there is a drop down here. So if she had multiple children, you could choose which child that you're looking at. But if I wanted to change status from exclusive to partial to minimal to back and forth, you can do that here as one location. If I say the mom is not breastfeeding, it's letting me know these are the changes that are going to be made. And if I do want to continue, then these fields now come alive. So I can say if she met her goal or not. I can say the day she stopped breastfeeding, and then this will auto-populate, and then I can say the reasons why she stopped, and it's a multi-select field. So I'm just going to pick a couple to show you that. Okay. And if she breastfed, even if she tried it like one time, like on the day the baby was born, that was it, then you can say not breastfeeding, and the day she started and the day she stopped, and eventually this will populate to say one day, and that's great. We're going to give her credit for that. This never breastfed button only populates when you say that she's not breastfeeding and she doesn't have a day that she started breastfeeding. So if she never ever breastfed, not even once, then you just come in and her status to not breastfeeding, you can check never breastfed. Okay, so I'm actually going to undo this so she stays breastfeeding here. Okay, so now she's back to exclusive and that stuff is gone. Okay. Other things I wanted to show you are the other tabs down here in the diet information. So under the children tab, you'll see a nice little timeline of each of her children. If she has more than one, they would all be listed here. So it's the baby's name, ID number, birthday, and then this field is dynamic. So right now, because they are breastfeeding, it's showing her current status in the goal, the baby status and goal. But if they've stopped breastfeeding, or if it wasn't a live birth or something, it'll show like the age or the reasons that she stopped breastfeeding, or it shows different things based on what is actually going on here. If you say select next to each child, then you get these nice summary tabs of everything that's happened for that particular child. So in this pregnancy tab is every handout that I gave her, topics that we discussed, classes that she attended, et cetera, through her entire pregnancy for this particular child. So for any other children, it might be different information here. The delivery tab here is where you would edit those fields like I was telling you about before if you don't do pregnancy complete. So this is where I could change or edit these items. But it's also it's also keeping track of any topics or handouts that were discussed or provided when you click the pregnancy complete button, if you did. And then here it's telling us the gestational age of the baby, like I said it would when it auto-populated. Again, these things aren't in the OhioWIC Search system yet, but when the sex and birth weight and length are in the OhioWIC Search system, that'll demonstrate this stuff here too. So it's a nice summary of the delivery information. The breastfeeding tab is not showing me anything right now, but it's maybe I can show you a different one, or you'll see it for yourselves. But I would encourage you to go look at this screen once you have some data entered for yourselves, because you can scroll through every breastfeeding contact for that child, and it's a good way to kind of keep track if you're following like intake, like she was breastfeeding 8 times a day and then it went up to 10 and then it was 12. So if we're kind of following those things, or weight or pumping sessions or any of those things, you can kind of click through real quick, see all the breastfeeding contacts, the information you gave her, kind of follow through some of that stuff, and it's really good information. So take a look at that when you have more data in yours. And then this notes tab here is just a section for general notes about the child unrelated to contact. So this is, you don't have to use this section if you don't want to, but if it's kind of like a permanent file, if you will, or some important or good to know information about that child only, that you don't have to then like dig through all the contacts for individually, or sort through like child 1 versus child 2. So if there's something I would just note about this child, the history, anything going on that's important, I can type a note here, and again, it's narrative. You can type almost as long as you want. You click save, and then it kind of shows you a summary here and who entered the contact and the date. And then you can view these. Again, you can't edit them. Actually, in this section, you can't edit it at all. You can only view it, and you can't delete any, but no contact in here can be deleted because, again, it's electronic charting, just kind of like in hospitals or other places. Like once something's entered, we can't just like remove it or white it out or something. Everything is in here for good. So that is the summary of the children tab. This next pump information tab, again, here in the timeline, will catalog every pump she's ever had. So if a previous child, we gave her a pump, or if she got like a hand pump before the symphony, they would all be noted here with dates issued and dates returned if they're applicable. And then if I click select next to the pump, this is where I can see the notes that I entered when I issued the pump. I can also add to these notes or make edits. This is where I have access to the return information, the missing information, and then also if I did the pump follow-ups or want to change the pump follow-up dates, I can mark them as completed, change them as applicable, and then they come off of my report and they're marked as completed for the future. So that's where all of that is located. Close out of there. Next, I wanted to show you the breastfeeding search function. So if you're in the OhioWIC Search system and you go to find, this is how we locate all of our participants. So the breastfeeding search tab is similar, but you'll notice it's breastfeeding because it does look a little bit different and it has the breastfeeding emblem. But what this does is it allows us to go straight to the breastfeeding tab. So if I'm looking again for Jane Eyre, who I was just working on, I can type her in and see some information about their ID, date of birth status, and the last time the breastfeeding information was updated. And if I say select, it brings me right to her breastfeeding tab. So you might utilize the breastfeeding specific find for a few situations. One is like, if I'm the peer and I'm just interested in like coming in and out real quick of breastfeeding stuff because I'm like doing my calls, it's going to save me a little bit of time and a few clicks, right? So I don't have to like go to find, pull them up, click on the, participant I want, click on the breastfeeding tab, click on breastfeeding details, and then come in here. So it just takes me right in here. Maybe I like make a call, I close it, and I'm like, okay, on to my next mom. Now I need to, work on Jane Bennett. and then I can add a contact in here for her. I tried to give her a call, but I couldn't get a hold of her because her phone's disconnected. Save, close, boom, next person, right? So it might just be quicker. Another really great thing about the breastfeeding tab is that someone can be reviewing breastfeeding information via the breastfeeding search while a different staff member is in that participant's record in the WIC search system. So you won't be able to edit the breastfeeding record, but you can be viewing it. So say the mom is in the clinic and she's in intake, and I'm the peer and I know that I'm up next. I can be in the breastfeeding tab kind of reviewing like what was been talked about before, last time she was here by the health professional or last time I called her, and kind of review that information. Or same thing, if I'm the health professional, the peer maybe talked to her yesterday on the phone, but now she's in the clinic today. So you can kind of like review what's going on in breastfeeding while she's in the clinic or someone else is in her record in WIC cert, but you have to get in through the breastfeeding tab, breastfeeding search tab. Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to show you are the breastfeeding reports. So these are ongoing. As I've mentioned several times, we have lots of goals, but we do have a few that are in production. So eventually, one of the next updates you'll see is that there will be like a breastfeeding report subsection of this report. So you'd go to breastfeeding and come over and see the reports. But for now, they're kind of all mixed in here together. So days after delivery report is one example. And so you can run these for clinic, county, or project, whatever you have privileges to. And then you run a date range for actual delivery date. So this is like, I want to know everyone who delivered between December 1st and now, let's just say. And then you can choose breastfeeding expectations. So like, I only want to see people who said they were going to breastfeed, or who didn't, or who were undecided, or if you leave it blank, it's going to pull all of those, or you can select them all. So when I say show report, it might think for a minute, but then it'll pull up the report. So what I want to say about this report, though, at the moment, the time of the filming of this video, is that it has some known bugs in it. Like, we know for sure that it's not working as it should. So we're working on making some improvements. So for now, until you hear differently, we would encourage you to still kind of keep track, hand tally, and keep track yourself in your same way that you have been. So, but what you can see here is when you get the report, it tells you the name of it and what county and what clinic, and then it's going to give you a list of all of the moms in your report, their name, their category, the date that they delivered, the date of their contact, and then it's doing a calculation for you. So Jane Bennett and Jane Eyre, which I've been working on these last 2 days, I contacted them same day. But some of these other ones, it was a few days. And then so if that doesn't seem right to you, you can kind of go back in and check. And then it's going to give you an average number of days for each clinic that you pull and an average number of days for the entire report. So it's 16. So this is what I would be reporting on my quarterly activity report. And then, as always, you can like check into the outliers if you want to, but we do know right now this is a little bit buggy, so you could still run it, but I would encourage you to kind of keep track of it yourself. But do make sure that you're putting all this information in here, because once we do switch to these, you will have more accurate reports right away, and they'll be more beneficial to you, so you can kind of see more information here about what's going on. So that's the days after delivery report. Another report is the due date report, which you're all probably pretty familiar with, and breastfeeding staff are going to utilize this, I know, for mailings and making sure we try to make the contacts that we need with our pregnant moms. So you put in a date range for expected delivery date and breastfeeding expectation, and then you get a list of moms, basically. So I won't spend a lot of time on that. I think that report's well known just in general. The recent activity report is a breastfeeding specific report. So you choose, again, clinic, county, project, and then you can choose a date range. And so what's the goal for, I'm just gonna do like this last week. So there are a few options, like the goal for this report. One is like, well, say I'm the peer and maybe I only work Monday through Wednesday. And so when I come in on Monday, maybe I'd run this report for last Thursday and Friday so I can see all of the changes that were made in the breastfeeding tab in those last 2 days. So like if I had Jane Bennett on my list that I needed to call and follow up with her, I'd be able to see, and like normally there wouldn't be so many, these are like people I've been testing on, right? But like normally I'd be able to see, I would see like, okay, so my coworker, Christian, tried to call Jane on Friday or whatever day and didn't get a hold of her, right? Or my coworker while I was out, received a call from Jane Eyre, and this is what happened there. So it's kind of letting me know what happened in my absence, and like I can mark people off of my list that I know the follow-ups have been completed, or like get more information. This could also be used from like a supervisory standpoint, could kind of see who is in the breastfeeding tab and using it appropriately and that type of stuff. So a couple potential uses for this report, but that's the main one. The breastfeeding follow-up report I've mentioned several times in this video. Again, I just want to try to like find a range that, is going to have data in this very small training environment here. So let's just try the month of January. Who needs a follow-up? Again, you would probably run it like for this day or for this week or, for the hours I'm going to be in, like the days I'm going to be in the clinic this week or something. And then you can show red flag participants. So if you click this button, everybody who has a red flag will, in the whole system, breastfeeding red flag will also show up here. So here we see, again, the name of the report, the date range that you chose, and which clinic. And if you choose multiple clinics, there'd be a page break in between each one. So this is saying like, okay, first on my list is this person because she has a red flag, and this is the date that she was red flag. Because remember, I included them, the red flag dates in here. So Cersei Lannister is in here for the red flag. Jane Bennett is in here. So you can see Jane Eyre needed a follow-up during this time, but it's been done already, so it's crossed off, but she's in here because she needed a red flag. So that wasn't a good data range because there's not a lot of data in this testing environment. But you see kind of what you get. You get the name, the ID number, her contact information, some basic information about her status and like how old her child is or when she delivered, and then you'd have the date of the next follow-up that's needed. And when it's a pump follow-up, you'll see like all 3 dates listed here. Okay, so I encourage you to like run these on yourselves or for yourselves and become familiar with them. We will update you as needed or as reports are finished and ready and available to you. Like I said, we do have several that we're working on that are being produced right now. So I think that's everything in this sort of high-level overview. So thank you so much for your attention. Again, my name is Christian Mielik, and if you have questions or suggestions, because the breastfeeding tab, while its functionality is completed, there are still, like, we want it to be the best that it can be for all of you. So if you have suggestions like, you know what, like, I'd like to see this field or this option within this field, or like, is it possible for it to do this? Feel free to send those my way. If you have specific questions about your clinic or about the tab or about its functionality, please let me know. You can call me or email me. My contact information is here. Also, you could let your NAS consultant know or the help desk if you have questions or concerns, and they will get the information to me or be able to help you for yourself. So if you would like further training or more information or have questions or comments, please just let me know. I'd love to hear from you. And we really, really want this to be a success. We want it to be useful and helpful for you all. So the more feedback that we can get, the better to help us make this the best that it can be. So thank you very much, and looking forward to hearing from you. And I hope you all have a great day.